One of the most appealing aspects of Star Citizen is the detailed and immersive ships you get to pilot and crew. With over 100 flyable in game and tons more in the pipeline to come out over the next few years, it's clear as day why people spend a ton of time trying to earn these ships, or just simply buying them with real money. Unfortunately, though, I believe that selling ships in the pledge store has ripped away their value. The unfortunate truth behind Star Citizen is that ships being sold was always going to happen. The game, as we know, is funded heavily by the fans, and honestly, CIG's funding model is incredibly effective because we just love cool spaceships. Though I do think that inevitably, when we get a 1.0 release, where we will most likely get our final full wipe, the effects of constant ship sales and selling capital class ships are going to kick in. I don't think that it's going to kill progression in the game or ruin player experience, but I do believe that a chunk of natural value and progression will be lost with it. So, what am I really getting at? Well, let's quickly dream about Star Citizen 1.0 for a moment. As it stands now, if you decided to purchase a ship from the Pledge Store before launch, when the final wipe occurs and true progression begins, you're going to start off with whatever ships you bought with real money, which obviously makes sense because that's your hard earned cash, and for CIG to take that away would be just insanity. All right, so what if I start off with a few more ships than the average Joe? It doesn't really affect anyone, does it? The simple answer is no, it really doesn't. But I can't imagine a world where someone starting off with just a starter ship doesn't have a more meaningful and progression filled experience. Let me give you a small example from a game everyone knows about, GTA Online. When I first started playing GTA Online back in 2017, I started out with nothing, as did any new player. All I wanted to do was explore the game, earn money, get weapons, and buy cool things like cars and garages. My first big goal, though, was the Del Perro Heights apartment, and I really wanted to earn the Dinkin Jester as my first real sports car in the game. For me, things like the Dinkin Jester were massive milestones, and in the end gave me a lot of value to that car instead of just looking at it as a low end sports car that I bought. Then there were my big goals, like the Zentorno. It took me a while, but over time I'd be able to buy a Zentorno and enjoy it like I always wanted to. This created a line of progression that I now find sentimental and allow me to enjoy the game for even longer. But imagine on day one I had the Zentorno. Well, yay, now I have a cool fast car that I like, but all of that progression and game time spent getting to this milestone no longer exists. There's no real reason now to go buy things like the Dinkajester that I know perform worse, because I start at a point that is automatically granting me access to things that a new player starting out would need to put some hours in to actually unlock. This is where Star Citizen comes into frame. Let's imagine 1.0 releases, and we use the same analogies we did with GTA. Assuming I wanted to go down the expedition exploration career path, I'd probably start with an Anvil Pisces, similar to the Dinka Jester in GTA. Now, what would my Zentorno be for Star Citizen? In my opinion, a decent upgrade and a goal would be the Anvil Terrapin, which probably equates to the Zentorno. It's a decent size and it's better at what it does, but it's not the top tier ship for the expedition career path. Now, at that point, I'd most likely go to the Constellation Aquila, then maybe the Carrack, and then the Misk Odyssey, a pretty massive ship. And assuming that the actual career path is filled with true meaningful gameplay, it should be a hell of a time to use an Odyssey for exploration. Now, what if I started with the Odyssey or the Carrack for that matter? Well, you wouldn't have a massively different experience than I would. You would need a crew, you need more resources, whatnot. But to start that career path, you're still going to start at the same level that I did with a Pisces. Now, I don't think there's anything problem with either or. If you want to start with the biggest ship, the craziest ship, go for it. If you want to start with the Pisces like I'd like to do, I think that's perfectly okay. But from the Pisces, in my opinion, you're going to have a lot more value in not only that ship, but the ships coming in front of it. So the Terrapin, the Constellation, the Carrack, and then finally the Odyssey, you're going to find a lot more value in those milestones. And not only that, but you'll look back at those ships and remember those experiences you did have. Now, I am a much more sentimental person, so I enjoy that kind of sentimental aspect of using a ship for a while and then retiring it whenever it's time to move on to another one. And generally speaking, that's not everyone's cup of tea. So I totally understand if you want to start with a $700 Odyssey off rip, go for it. Honestly, it sounds like a ton of fun. I just think that having that natural progression is going to provide a much more meaningful and enjoyable progression in Star Citizen and that career path, and also provide more value in those ships because those massive ships that are going to take a ton of time to unlock aren't just going to be in the palm of your hands on day one. Now, the example is far from one to one between the two. The larger and more complex the ship is, the more you have to consider things like the cost to operate, how much crew do you need, and do you have the resources to operate in the ship and maintain it during your expedition, as well as the fact that some of the starter ships and cheaper options actually have some great gameplay advantages. These are things you don't really need to worry about in a game like GTA. But the main similarity between these two games is that for a new player that doesn't buy into any better car or ship, it will take time and experience to get to those major milestones, adding value to that ship or car. For GTA, it was the Zentorno. When Star Citizen releases, it could be a ship like one of the Cutlasses or a high end ship from Origin, really depending on your path in the game. In my opinion, the progress and time that it takes to hit these milestones are extremely important to meaningful game time and having a tangible reward for your efforts. I know that unlocking new ships will only be one of hopefully many forms of true progression, but I find it to still be one of the most valuable, as the ships in Star Citizen are where we spend a great portion of our time. And although I believe that starting from square one is very valuable, I don't think there is actually anything wrong with buying one or multiple ships from the pledge store. I myself own one ship, but I have done some ship upgrades. I went from Aurora to Avenger Titan, now to the Zeus Mark II, which is where I plan on staying until the game releases. And honestly, off script, the Zeus Mark II looks insane. I'm so excited for that. Going back to it though, for some players, or maybe many players, that choose to spend more money and have more or bigger ships, they might be left in a different situation. I do think that CIG will come up with ways to counter the negative effects of buying tons of ships from the pledge store, but that can't possibly be an easy task, especially after allowing some of those players access to capital class ships. Again, ships aren't everything in this game, though there's no way that the pledge store won't have a pretty massive effect on what is Star Citizen 1.0. Personally, I would prefer the reality where we all start from square one, working with one another to progress and taking our time to unlock and earn the different things in Star Citizen. Allow us to slowly creep towards our own personal base and upgrades in our ships, and creating organizations and groups along the way. Though as we know that's not going to happen, and it probably never was, and that's okay. That dream kind of got thrown out when the pledge store really started to open up selling ships. In the end, though, Star Citizen is a game that will have a lot to offer. Yes, people will start with dozens of ships, but who's to say they won't have as much fun as someone starting off with a simple Aurora? Again, my opinion is that those milestones between ships and unlocks are important, but assuming Chris and CIG pull through with even a portion of their overall vision of the game, there should be a ton of different milestones for players and organizations to work towards. Unfortunately, I just think that selling ships for many, many years will have an effect on the value of those ships to many players. Again, when 1.0 hits, seeing an 890 jump flying around with an entire crew will be awesome. There is no problem if that player decided that they wanted to buy that ship with real money or earn it in game over a period of time. Though, I hope many aspects of the Pledge Store disappear with a 1.0 release. The last thing this game needs after over a decade of development is for the Pledge Store to give you a shortcut to a crazy cool ship post launch. I doubt that will happen, but with CIG, you never know. Remember, Star Citizen 1.0 is only the tip of the iceberg for this game. They're going to be developing it and supporting it for years and years and years. And that real vision that we've always had and the vision that we funded for this game won't come for a very long time. And that's going to require them to keep that pledge shop open, or what will turn into probably just the Star Citizen shop. My hope, like I said before, again, is that they keep ships completely out of the store. Yes, it would probably make them a ton of money still if they kept them out and just kept releasing ships and whatnot and allowing you to use real money to buy them. But in my opinion, the value of those ships has already been degraded so much by allowing us to purchase every ship basically that's in the game. And to each their own. If you'd like to do that, completely fine. But I do think that allowing us to do that post launch would just annihilate the value and progression when it comes to these ships. So whatever they do, I hope it is valuable to the players that are gives them a reason to buy it and enjoy it. But I don't want it to be ships. I want it to be anything but ships or just generally vehicles and whatnot that you can progress towards in Star Citizen. And that's just my opinion. Again, value really is just subjective to each person. So you might completely disagree with me, and that's totally okay. I totally support that. Regardless of the value of ships, this game has an amazing vision, incredible immersion, and some cool ass spaceships to fly. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you are still here and you're still listening to me and just my opinions on all this Star Citizen stuff, feel free, if you'd like to, support the channel, give me any feedback, like, dislike, subscribe, whatever you want. You don't have to do it, but if you'd like to, I'd appreciate it. And generally speaking, I love this project. Star Citizen is awesome. I love talking about it. I love watching, hearing about it, and also just giving my own opinion on it. We're on like the last final stretch to CitizenCon over the next month, and I'm really excited to kind of just talk about that and see what they show us and see if it's as hype as they say it's gonna be. Regardless though, I have one more video on this channel. It's about Star Citizen 4.0 and how it's probably still gonna be a little bit disappointing. I'm gonna be putting up some more stuff about SC in the near future. Regardless though, again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.